Greetings and salutations, and we're back with some more figuring out to see how much Deckard Cain costs us. As when we left off, I had a rough calculation, and I say rough because I had to restart my computer for Windows update. I had to think of the word Windows. Anyway, I had to restart it for the Windows update, and when I did, the calculator lost its tally. So I went through my last video and I watched it, much to my chagrin, and I found out we have roughly 3,400 gold spent. So I put up about 3,460, which is not divisible by 80. Is it? By 80, let's see. I don't think it is. Let me go back. Find out. So, if we did that by another... Now let's try this. Let's see what we get. Okay, so it's got to be 3,520. Because then when I add 80, it becomes... Oops. Go back to that. Let's go back to that. I've kind of lost it here. So then when I add 80 at 3,520, it becomes 3,600. Then we do divide by 80, because that's the thing. It's 45. Yeah. So it's got to be 3,520. So we'll just clear everything, and then we'll just put in 3,520, because that's about what we were at. No. Okay. Okay. 3,520. Now we're going to pick up where we left off. Took me a while. But nevertheless, so it's one of those things that, as I'm going through, I realized, yeah, we're not spending all that much money, because I was starting to get decimals when it says, oh, you've done this so much. We have spent enough for 2 whole empty tomes, which I have the tomes sitting there in the empty tomes sitting in the stash. Because I want to kind of show exactly how many empty tomes it is. And this is also going to be the very tanky barbarian build that I was going with on the other setup. Let me see here. I'm going to turn down the audio just a smidge. No, it's... I sat there and I was thinking about it, and it's like, wait a minute, that didn't come out right. But yeah, it didn't come out right. But we've spent roughly 3,520. It's an approximation. I was going to have an exact total, but, you know, ever since I restarted for the Windows updates, yeah, it's now an approximation. No worries, though. We will have a total. And, I mean, we're just going to get to the point where... Well, there's another 80 that we're going to have to add. Give me 2 seconds here. At plus 80. And we are at 3,600 because I'm going to identify this ring. Now, it seems weird to really try to be doing this, but it's like, if you really think about it, do we really have to know exactly how much Deckard Cain is saving us in terms of money? No, we don't. It's interesting to find out. At least it is to me. Might not be to other people, but we're slowly finding that out. And I know. There's going to be a lot of people out there saying, why not just edit the video and make it shorter? All my videos are unedited. For multiple reasons. First and foremost is edited videos give off the feeling of something that's not very authentic. And the reason I say that is simply because if you watch edited videos, they have run-on sentences, they never fumble with things, it's all just crisp and clean and concise, and it feels like it feels fake. It feels fake. Now I know that I'm going to be met with, you know, probably a whole boatload of pushback where people are like, but Quiz, you know, what about Mr. Beast, or what about Markiplier, or Jacksepticeye? They've, you know, big names because of what they've done. Yeah, sure, absolutely, 100%. But then you realize, are they really like that in person, or is that just a persona that they put on airs? And whether or not they're like that in person, I mean, that's up to them. And if they want to be something completely different in person, then sure, absolutely. Right? But if they want to be authentic and genuine, they can be. That's not saying that they're all doing it, because it's not. There's another plus 80. To me, it's just an interesting, I guess, juxtaposition. I prefer the unfiltered medium. That people see my mistakes, people see everything that happens, and they quite literally get exactly what you see. I mean, everybody knows that old saying, right? Like, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. This is that, only quite literally on camera. And I've been playing quite a few games. Somebody gifted me Windrose, and I've kind of played a little bit of that. I've not had the chance to play as much of it as I want. I may do a Windrose kind of, I don't know, almost like a brutal Windrose playthrough. I may do that. I started a character, and as I was going through the character customization, I realized I actually made Deckard Cain. I was just, you know, tinkering around making a pirate, and then all of a sudden I look at him and he's got the haircut and the beard and the mustache, and I'm like, I've made Deckard Cain. Well, okay. So it is. But what I'll do is I'll go through on an even harder difficulty, because I put it on hard in the one, and I turned up the health of stuff. I'll show you when I'll actually do a Windrose after this. But it's quite interesting how the game plays. At first I was kind of leery on it, because I was like, well, it says Souls-Light, and I've Souls-like combat, and I'm not a fan of the Dark Souls series. I know, blasphemy, right? I'm probably going to hear that from 1,000 people decrying it from the stands. They're probably going to be like, that's blasphemy, how dare you say that, Quiz? Dark Souls is an amazing achievement. Meanwhile, what it sounds like to me is, Dark Souls is an amazing achievement. Don't ever knock it, it's an awesome game. That's how it sounds to me. Because to me, I played it, right? Now, I'm again, everybody says, well, you're one of those old, you know, the hip kids like to call it unk status. I don't know. Just call me an uncle, call me a boomer, call me an old fart. I don't care. But anyway, whatever terminology you want to use, but actually use words, not abbreviations. People don't speak in abbreviations. You know, you don't call the street a st. You don't call an abbreviation ab. Use words. Actual phonetics. Sound it out. You know? Use your vocabulary. Grab life by the vernacular. Anyway, they can call me whatever they want to. I played when games had genuine challenge, right? People would say, well, what do you mean genuine challenge? Dark Souls has genuine challenge. No. Dark Souls does not have genuine challenge, okay? You know what Dark Souls has? It has stuff posing as genuine challenge. And what do I mean by that? Well, quite simply put, you have... Right, there's the 80 I just did. I just added. You have a combat system that is specifically made that you have to parry attacks in order to be the most effective at combat. Right? Right. Where do they say that in the tutorial anywhere? They don't. There is no tutorial, to my knowledge, in the original Dark Souls. At least to my recollection. I can't say to my knowledge, to my recollection. I don't recollect there being a... I don't recall there being a tutorial. I could be wrong. There could be a tutorial. They may have told you how to parry. But anyway, I'm going to go off my memory and say, I don't remember it. I don't remember being told how to parry. Kind of important to the overall functionality of the game. And they made it so that even the most basic of minions and monsters can just do you in. Now, people would say, well, there you go. I'm sorry. But in Mega Man, which is lauded as one of the harder games, or, you know, Ninja Gaiden, for example, even Double Dragon 3, Battletoads, any of those, unless you fell down a hole, you didn't die in 1 or 2 hits. You had life, you had to be able to take hits. Yeah, you have life in Dark Souls. What little bit you actually have. And then, to make matters worse, let's say you died. At least I remember, if I remember correctly, in Dark Souls 2, when you died, you came back with less health. Less maximum health. I'm sorry, why are you getting punished twice? You just died. Why are they punishing you for dying? Should have died, should have played better. That's trash. That's absolute trash. Play Ghosts and Goblins. Right? Ghosts and Goblins, yeah, you died in 2 hits. There was no life meter. You had armor, and then just death. That's a genuine challenge. Try to get the real ending in Ghosts and Goblins. Tell me how that goes. The game was designed to be hard on purpose. You were designed to only take 2 hits. Not so in Dark Souls, because you could technically roll out of the way, block, etc. Ooh, gotta identify that. That's another plus 80. What I'm saying is, like, it just doesn't feel like genuine challenge to me in Dark Souls. It feels like they put together a game and made it so that you spent more time playing it just so you could be good at it, right? That's how it is to me. I think, personally, that they did it on purpose to make people spend more time in the game. I think the game was developed, and it has a very short storyline, and I think to hide it, to cover up the fact that it's a very short game, they just made everything really difficult. That way it's like, yes, it's a 40-hour adventure. It's actually a 4-hour adventure. It's just so hard you have to spend more time on it. It'd be like me saying Castlevania 2 is a 60-hour adventure. It's not. You know, if you actually play through the game and you know what you're doing, it's not that long of a game in Castlevania 2, but it is hard. so you spend a lot of time redoing. And that's not how you make a game with replayability factor. That's not how you make a game to be a good game. Like, good games to me are things that are just designed well, not designed well. You know what I mean? It's almost like they got halfway done developing any of the Souls games and said, okay, pack it, ship it, we'll just make it more difficult, fix it in post. That's how it felt to this guy. But let's go back to Windrose. What I was talking about first and foremost, and that is, I was not really leaning toward getting it because it said Souls-like, and I was like, not a fan of that combat system, but I'll give it a shot. It's not as bad as Dark Souls. It's not as punishing as Dark Souls. However, I am going to make the highest difficulty in the game. Not just hard, but it's going to go beyond hard. I know what you're thinking. How can it go beyond hard? Well, let me explain this. In the game, Windrose, there are slider bars to adjust enemy health, enemy ship health, enemy, you name it. You can adjust, you can put a slider bar and give it more health and make it do more damage. Just doing that right there makes the game infinitely harder. Those might actually be better than what I've got. Not, but I identified them, so we're up to 3920. So when I go to play Windrose, and I am going to be making a Windrose video after this, you will see what I'm talking about with the whole... There's a slider bar that increases difficulty. It's kind of absurd. Also, it doesn't really matter what I do with the whole using a shared stash or not, mostly because, I mean, I'm only doing this to see how little I can spend. By shared stash, I mean for like gems and runes. I'm not going to actually pull gear out of there and use it. That's just wrong. I'm going to do self-found on the gear, but if you look here, I mean, I've got tons of gems and tons of runes. So it's like if I want to make, you know, stealth, I'm going to wait to see if I can get it. Which one of these is mine? That one. I want to make stealth, I'll just go and get it that way. Pour myself a cup of coffee. I think the slider bar to increase health and everything is an interesting concept. And I'm glad that Windrose put it in. Originally, they wanted to make it like a PvP MMO-ish style game. But if you think about it, server load, character load, they put housing into it already. It's like, you're going to run into a problem that Archeage ran into, which is people buying up the best spots. Archeage had that same problem. Just saying. So I'm kind of glad they went with a PvE route with it. But at the same time, you just know that there's going to be someone out there that's going to mod it, because it is on Steam. They're going to modify it, and they're going to make a PvP Windrose game. Or the developers themselves are going to bring out PvP eventually, at which point, boy, oh boy, you thought Rust was amazing? This is going to be incredible. Because it is early access, so. Ow. Outside of that, I've been playing quite a bit of Pokemon Champions. Still kept concurrent with Hearthstone. And they did buff... I gotta identify that, too. They did buff a few things, so this is another 80. 4,000 exactly. I mean, poison produced. Can't really hate on it. They did change a few cards, and they added some new cards, as I showed in the one thing. I showed the whole discard Warlock idea. The functionality of that Phoenix works at the end of your turn, which means you'd have to play Maloriak on the turn you want to discard a card, or discard that card. Which, if you do it with Void Lord, I had to think of it. So let's say you set the Void Lord on fire on 5. So then at the end of 5, end of 6, and at the end of 7, that's the third turn, would be turn 7. At the end of turn 7, the Void Lord would get discarded, and you would then summon it because of Maloriak. Maloriak says whenever you discard a card, summon it. So you summon your card, your Void Lord. The weird part is, and this is where it gets interesting, the Phoenix summons itself again after the ending of the turn. So even if they kill the Phoenix on, say, turn 5, it comes back on 7 after that card gets discarded. So there is some potential for big plays, in the sense that obviously there are some cards you don't want to discard, and if Maloriak can survive through turn 7 into turn 8, I mean, I guess with Void Lord on the board and you hit end turn, that could keep Maloriak there. Maybe there's a way to... I mean, you could get him 2/2 and elusive with the Dark Lord, Xavius. I really do want to make the discard Warlock a thing. Ooh. That's a plus 160. Better than mine. Charge Bolt, mana, lightning resist. This is just attacker takes damage, mana, strength. Ooh. 6, 3 to 6. Alright, we can do that, I guess. Scout, get some defense. No, there is some interesting ideas that those Phoenixes can bring to Hearthstone with the discard deck. But you just have to... There's got to be a way to do it. What if you held on to your cursed catacombs? Think about it. You play Cursed Catacombs, right? It costs 0. It puts a card into your hand, but at the end of your turn, it says discard it. So if you discard it at the end of your turn, and Maloriak's on the board, and you choose a minion, it's going to summon the minion. I mean, you could potentially get some epic level mana cheating that way, but it has the potential to also go pear-shaped in such a way that you don't want it to. Sounds weird to say that, but if you really think about it, let's say you have Maloriak, you've already used your Phoenix on 5, turn 7 rolls around, because it's at the end of each turn, kind of like Wheel of Death used to be. Used to be at the end of your turn, it would cycle 1 forward, and then they switched it at the beginning of your turn, and it was just awful. So Maloriak functions like old. So if you were to have both Cursed Catacombs, and you were to play both of those and Maloriak on 7, and then hit end turn, you could potentially summon 4 things on turn 7, ranging anywhere from 7 to 10. But you would have to have the Survivor. You have to have Sheltered Survivor. I'm coming up with something in my head. Because you already have people using Sheltered Survivor to shuffle Ultra Gigasaur or the Asphyxiodon back into their deck so that their Animancer can pull it when it dies. What if you don't want your, high-end minions pulled? And you're like, I want them played at the end of my turn, right? So you use those with Maloriak. Yeah, the whole deck hinges around getting Maloriak, but let me think. You'd have to find good cards that are that are like 6 mana. Because then you could theoretically play the 5 mana Death Rattle minion of, I think of his name, Talon. I think it's Talon Fordring. You could play him and have him fetch Maloriak if Maloriak is the highest cost minion in your deck. So you do that, and then good. Let me think. I'm sitting here thinking about it, right? You have Deos. Deos states that end of turn effects happen twice. Is the Phoenix's end of turn effect is its discarding effect something along those lines? Because if the discarding effect is an end of turn effect, then that's just absolutely bonkers. Because then you could get double the Void Lord or double the whatever card you want on turn 7, as well as getting double the Phoenix comeback. There's no way that works. No way that works, though. I'm trying to really, contemplate if that's really how that works. Because if it works that way, if we're to be honest something, then you'd have to throw that card away Is there a way to discard that for cheap? I think the cheapest is a three drop. If the cheapest is a 3-drop, then you're talking turn 10. You don't want to do that on turn 10. You won't survive. You would need Duke. You also have to find ways to discard your hand. Good. Wait a minute. Ooh, I just had a spicy idea. I just had a really spicy idea for Warlock. Most people aren't running Rust Rock. Ooh. I have got an idea. Ooh, gonna have to plus 80 that one. 320. Getting expensive. Plus 1 strength. I count that jewel? No, I did not. 34. Well, there's the Tal rune. I just need an F rune. I got a bit of a spicy idea. I want to see if it works. It's gonna take like all of my thought process. I have to like devote 100% to it because it's gonna be ridiculous. If it works and it reliably works, it could redefine Warlock's playstyle completely. Alright. Well, we're at 33 minutes. I am going to make a Wind Rose video, and it is going to be coming up next. We're also at 4,400 gold. And I will remember that 4,400. We have spent just over 4,000, 4,400 gold. It seems like a lot, if you think about it, right? Like, we were... Oops, bumped into the microphone. I mean, we're only, what, halfway through? No, not even completely. We were a little over halfway through Act 1. And we've already spent 4,000 gold. So if you just use a rough average and extrapolate that out, we're talking about 20,000 per difficulty. And that's assuming you're not identifying large quantities of gear when it drops on the bosses, like Andariel, Duriel, and so on and so forth. This is also my defensive barbarian in single player, so I'm kind of hoping that I can get to Iron Skin and a couple other things and maybe, just maybe, be defensive enough that I don't have to worry about Andariel or Duriel's physical attacks. I can just kind of stand there and pummel things. I'm also going to be getting a Defiance or a Mercenary in Act 2. That way I have even more defense. Because why not, right? But anyway, I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow. And as always, have a good one.